Well, thanks for having me. I'm Steve Grubbs. I'm the founder and CEO of Victory XR, and I'm not going to speak real long because I don't have a lot of time and maybe there's a question. But I believe, and I think a lot of people believe, that we are at a very interesting time where education is going to begin this very significant and revolutionary shift from the standard traditional classroom into more remote learning ways. Now, obviously, the shift from the classroom to Zoom or a webinar style system happened very quickly, and a lot of schools who thought they could avoid it suddenly had to adopt it almost immediately, and so that was good. But I think we all know, whether you are a college student or a high school or middle school student, that sitting in front of a 2D screen all day is just not going to cut it. And so there are three things that are happening right now that most of you are probably aware of, that are important, that are at this really critical intersection. First is hardware. With the advent of the Oculus Quest 2 and what I believe will be new headsets coming from Pico and Vive probably in the next year, now with the new Qualcomm 5G chip, and the competitive cost of these, it's going to make it more available to more people and a lot quicker. And I get the whole Quest 2 issue with logging in on Facebook, but I think for educational purposes, Facebook will resolve that issue. Number two is 5G. The Qualcomm 5G chip, the VR chip, is a big deal, and it's going to make a big difference. And then third is the proliferation of social platforms. You've got AltSpace VR, you've got Horizons obviously AltSpace VR is from Microsoft, Horizon from Facebook. The one that we have built our campus on is Engage VR. And Engage VR for us has some tools that have been very helpful. It's a small team, it's a startup team, so they've been great to work with. When we need changes made, we make those suggestions. So these have been extremely helpful, and it's allowed us to do some things that were never before possible. So let's talk about what education in AR and VR can look like and how it intersects with LBEs. So for the most part, people come into an LBE to play games, but that's only one revenue stream. The revenue stream for corporations using LBEs for corporate training and for educational field trips to experience things they could never experience before are two additional revenue streams that can occur in non-standard hours, non-gaming hours. So that's an important piece of this. And what we believe about education is that the campus we're building is one that in some ways looks traditional. So if you walk into our science lab or our math room or our auditorium, they're going to look very similar to a college classroom or a high school classroom that you might exist in, that you might use in the real world. But then what we know is that you can do things in virtual reality that you cannot do in the real world, which makes the learning experience more memorable and creates greater retention, and second of all, just makes it more interesting. So with that, what I'd like to do is to have Jeremy show the first video that I brought, and then we will talk about it. So this, before you play it, let me give it some setup. So most of us have been to a planetarium before. You go to a planetarium, usually it's a school field trip. Maybe you lie back in a chair. There's a number of different ways they approach it. Maybe it's the dome in a science museum. And so you look up at the stars. But I have always been a huge fan of Star Trek. And so I told the devs, I said, if we create a planetarium, it must have a Star Trek style transporter. And so that's what you're going to see here. And then I'll talk a little bit more about it. And the person that's speaking is Danny, our lead developer. Also, he tells me, a very accomplished thespian in high school. Jeremy, go ahead and run this clip, please.
Welcome to the Victory XR Academy Astronomy Center. This is our planetarium. And first and foremost, what I'd like to show you all is this little device here. This is what we affectionately call the star map. This is an interesting little interactable where if you take a look at the sky, take a look way up into the sky, I can actually take this ball and I can grab the sky and freely move it, which is perfect for astronomy lessons. I have the access to the entire night sky at my fingertips. And if you look here in this ball, this arrow will always point towards the North Star, Polaris. What I'm going to pull up here is one of our many 2D videos. We have over 100 of these in our library.
On that day, SpaceX was going to try to launch and re-land 3 rocket boosters at the same time. The rocket they launched, called Falcon Heavy, was, in fact, 3 rockets strapped together. A main core booster with 2 smaller side boosters. The 2 smaller rockets separated from the main booster and came back to Earth, landing in almost eerie precision at their landing spots in Cape Canaveral, Florida.
Now, so while it's always fun and interesting to study the stars from here on Earth, what we can do here in virtual reality is we can actually head up into space and study the celestial bodies in a more organic fashion.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, engage.
If you look over here toward me, you'll see that what's behind me is the Apollo 11. And where we're standing is Tranquility Bay, which is the spot that they first dropped Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, building those for the university level and the middle school and high school level. And so this is the type of thing that you can get.
So you can see that, sure, you can still learn in a traditional way, but what I believe that the future of collaborative group education in VR will include are things that are fantastical. So for example, for paleontology, we built a dinosaur island. For Spanish, our students will not learn in a traditional classroom. Instead, our students will learn at the Pyramid of the Moon, which is about 90 minutes south of Mexico City. And so if you can choose wherever in the world you want to learn, well, then why not learn in this amazing, fantastic way? But even more than that, let's say you have to learn anatomy. Let's say you have to learn about the human heart or human organs or comparative anatomy. Well, that can be pretty cool as well. As you'll see next in this next clip, Wendy Martin, who is a national finalist for Teacher of the Year, because if you're going to have a teacher in your VR school, why not choose the best in the United States so that every single child has access to the very best teachers? Because we all went to school. We know that some of our teachers were awesome and some of our teachers were not. So let's give every child access to the best teachers. And we can now do that when geography is no longer an issue. So what you're going to see here is the science classroom. It's set up. I've just introduced Wendy Martin, and she's going to teach students about the human heart.
Thank you, Stephen. Real quick, could we ask Mindy to step off stage? And Steve, if you could step off stage just temporarily during the video, because I think some of the video is echoing into your mic.
Wendy, go ahead and take it away.
Hey, thanks, Steve. As you said, my name is Wendy Martin, and for the past 21 years, I've been teaching both high school and college level biology and anatomy. So everybody just comes a little closer. You can see in front of us, we have a human cadaver. The human body is made up of 11 systems. It has probably nearly 100 organs in it. We're just going to look at one of the organs today. Take your joystick and move it to the left or right, and you can increase or decrease the size of the heart. And one of the coolest things that we can do is not only give each student the ability to handle a human heart and to look at its form and function while I'm discussing it, but we can actually blow it up large enough. You might want to step away from another group, because you can blow this heart up so large that you can actually step inside of it. And that's what I want us to do. So it's bigger than you, and stick your head in it. And what I want you to see when you step inside of it is I want you to pay attention to the chambers. The 2 bottom chambers are the ventricles, and you can actually see these large finger-like muscles coming off of them. They help control the valves. The 2 upper chambers that you can see are the atria, and those are the receiving chambers. As you move the heart around, you can actually kind of stick your head into the vessels, and you can kind of see the direction the blood would be coming or going. as it moved into a vessel. If you guys could see yourself right now, it looks very interesting to look out and see all of these bodies walking in and out of these life-size hearts. But what we wanted to show you is how amazing it is that we can offer this ability to give students this very unique opportunity to handle these body organs and to actually transport themselves into the organs, something that we obviously cannot do in a typical classroom setting.
So I'm going to wrap up, but with just a few comments here, and then Jeremy, I don't know if we can take questions or not, but essentially the option for students to learn in a way that they love to learn. Now, we just launched this campus. We launched our individual simulator VR 3 years ago, and schools all around the world use that simulator VR. But the group collaborative VR, where the teacher can come into the classroom. So your science teacher from your school can go into your lab, and instead of spending $1 million because your school district doesn't have $1 million to build a biology lab, you can now do it in VR and do it in many ways better, and in a way that students love it more, in a way that they have all the studies that we've seen show significantly greater retention of the information that's learned. And so if you are a VR LBE, this is something that if you have, whether it's our facility or whether it's Alt Space VR or Horizons, giving people access to this, having them purchase a license, which is about $15 per headset per month. These are things that create opportunity for school districts when they come to a location on a field trip. And the things that you can do, we didn't even talk about the fact that we have a woolly mammoth skeleton on loan from the Smithsonian. So students walk around it, they ooh and they ah, that's pretty cool. But then we say, hop onto our time machine. Let's go back in time and actually see a real herd of woolly mammoth, and you can even pet the woolly mammoth. So these are things that inspire children to learn, and I really believe that it's the wave of the future, especially with the cost of headsets coming down and the proliferation of these social VR platforms. So Jeremy, I know that I'm over time by 2 minutes, but if you want me to take questions, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, I think we could take a question. I think Jurgen is still hopping on. Do we have any questions from the audience? I actually had a question while we wait for the other audience questions. So could we just come to your website to sort of learn more about the events and the types of classes? Are the types of classes open to the public? So if anyone's interested in learning more, they can just sort of hop in and check out the campus with other real students and real things going on?
Yes, so we have tours for the public every 2 weeks, open tours, and we're happy to take a full class in there or just a teacher or an administrator, either way. In addition to that, we have, so if you happen to have a Windows headset, then half of our content is free on Microsoft Store because it's been licensed. So normally one would pay a fair amount of money for half of our content, since we have 250 unique VR experiences, but Microsoft has made it available to the public. And then in addition to that, we have Adventures in Space that's free for every headset. So that's one of our best units.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. And if y'all want to chat with Steve a little bit more, Steve will be around. We can do more networking in the back in the lobby area. But yeah, thank you so much, Steve. Please a round of applause for Steve and Victory XR. Thank you.